Hi, my name is Dave Eischeid, and I'm in Bellevue, Iowa. I'm a working artist, and to give a little bit of a background on where I came from, I taught art here in the high schools at Bellevue Community Schools for 33 years. I taught with Mike Dolan for 5 years. I'm married to my wife Carol, and we have 5 children, which we raised here in Bellevue. After I retired from teaching art, both Carol and I got into a mom and pop photography studio where we did weddings, seniors, families, etc. And we found that to be very lucrative, and it really did suffice financially for us to carry through until I was able to go into full-time art. And that's kind of where I'm at now. We started a thing called the Bellevue Arts Council here in Bellevue. We have over 80 members that belong to the Bellevue Arts Council. We have 8 members that are on the board, which I am part of that. We try to do an event of some sort, some artistic event every month. Things that we feel we can bring in and share with the community here in Bellevue. That's probably one of our major goals, along with education. We've had elementary education with art. We have done family-friendly art classes, and probably our largest event is going to be the festival, which will be coming up here in September. However, I, as an artist, have found that some of the things I'm most interested in is, of course, our Mississippi River, which runs right by Bellevue. It's a fantastic resource. We have a large sculpture piece that we have erected 3 years ago along the river, and we entitled it Ever Changing, which the river is. It's never the same every day. In fact, it probably changes every hour. But with the seasons and the waterfowl and the fish and the boats and the transportation, there is always something to see along that river. And I have found that to be my main fascination, whether I go into abstract art or whether I go into realism. I keep dropping back to the idea of the Mississippi River. Trying to get a composition, trying to get a feel of that ever-changing liquid motion that river offers, plus the history of it. You can't help but think that this has not changed other than the lock and dam systems. The islands, the way the water has run has been like that for hundreds of years. And I feel that, and I try to get some of that feeling into the paintings and into the artwork that I have done. Probably my latest work, which is through the help of Mark, to do his drone shot of the north side of the lock and dam. 3 years ago, he photographed that for me, and I was then able to visualize Canadian geese flying over Bellevue from a direction no one else has ever seen because of his expertise of working with a drone. I also have used that same background to illustrate eagles soaring over our little town. And it's been a lot of fun, but again, it's only showing the river as a background. It's not showing the essence of what this river has to offer. So from there, I was able to see the changes that came into the Bellevue Arts Council. With the help of Alan Ernst and Mark, Water Street has allowed us to put a gallery in the bottom of a button factory that they have remodeled. Now, that whole concept of what a button factory is and what it does seems to illustrate some of the ideas of the river. So as I did the research for that particular mural that I'm working on, I found out that at the turn of the century was the first time that they went ahead and actually made buttons out of shells of the clams that they were harvesting out of the river. I also noticed that it opened and closed. It didn't stay static very long, 2 or 3 years, and then it would kind of run its course, and then there'd be a few years, and then it would start up again. And it seemed like in the 1930s, they recorded 35,000 pounds of shells that they harvested out of the river. And what they did with these shells is to drill into them, and I have an example here. So here's the clam, and they clean out all the inside of it, and then they put this shell up to a drill and drill out these holes that are for the buttons. Plastic was not invented yet, or not used for the buttons, manufacturing of the buttons. In my research of this, I became very sensitive to what these clams, these freshwater clams, and with the help of Maury Anderson, he is part of our fisheries technician for the DNR. He spoke too, and he said the damage that has been done on these clams is still, the river is still sacrificing from that. And I became very sensitive to that. So in the mural, I am actually going to show the beauty of the destruction of what we did with these clams. Some of the things that we found out that these clams do, they're the main filtration of the river. And the hundreds and hundreds of clams that are in there are constantly purifying the water, taking the some of the nutrients out, but some of the bad stuff out, and replacing it with oxygen, just like the plants. In fact, Maury told me, he said, just think about it as the trees that we have all around our hillsides. Those trees take in carbon dioxide and give off oxygen. Clams are doing the same thing to the water. So here we come along, we find something that we can manufacture out of this, and we sacrifice probably one of the most beautiful ingredients that that river needed, and by harvesting the clams. And so my mural is showing kind of an overview of the documentation of how that is done, and I still try to paramount the beauty of the river, the beauty of this clamshell, which we can find right down along our riverbanks. In fact, all the little towns along the Mississippi River did button making. Some didn't last very long, and the one here in Bellevue, I think, closed up in about the 1940s. And then all their machinery and stuff was sent down to Muscatine, Iowa, which was the main largest production of these buttons, until plastic came along and closed this whole process down. So with that, I'm going to show you the mural and kind of show you the step-by-step process that I have done to illustrate my feeling of what the button factory was all about. Okay, this is the mural. This is the mural from the button factory. This idea was thought up mostly by Alan Ernst, who has designated where he wanted this particular art piece to be. I initially was going to do the mural in 2 or 3 paintings, and then he could move those paintings anywhere he wanted. He decided that he would rather have it all in one piece, and as you can see, there are 3 pieces, panels, and I have it that way so that I can work up here in my studio upstairs and not be bothered too much by weather or other distractions as I'm working. So let's talk a little bit about what the mural is about. The composition of the mural is actually triangular. So I'm starting from the left and I'm going over to the right, and then I will focus my main part on the center of the mural. This mural is not finished. I would say, probably another 10 hours to finish the mural. I can only work about 3 hours at a time. My energy level, that's good. And I'm able to do that with a lot of coffee. So let's start over with the background first, because that's where I started on the painting. Again, I said I'm very familiar with the river. I love all the aspects. I look at the river all the time when I'm driving, more than I probably should. Sometimes I will just sit here in the window and stare out and appreciate what's happening to the atmosphere. And that's what you're seeing in the background. If you look clear back into here, you can see that some of the hills are kind of a dull grayish, and that's called aerial perspective. You are actually looking through atmosphere or moisture, and the things that are closer up, of course, you're not looking through that much moisture or that much atmosphere, and therefore they're a lot brighter. That's Leonardo da Vinci back in the 1400s. That was his idea, and we've all shared that. All artists have used aerial perspective in their landscapes. The reflections are, again, time that I'm out on the river fishing, I'm looking and I'm observing. Sometimes I take a few pictures now and then, but more often I want the feel rather than, then I might as well print a picture and put that up. That isn't what I want. I want to be able to feel that atmosphere so you can really see it back in here. It takes you clear back into the artwork itself. Okay, so part of my composition is triangular. The idea of that is how you read. We read left to right, and therefore this dominant figure over here on this side is the fisherman. And this was taken from a postcard, which you can buy these down in the library. That's where I saw it. And the boat, the fisherman, the whole thing is photographed on there. So I took off the stuff the things that I wanted, the indications. I love the oar, the way it's placed this way, because it brings your eye back into the center part of the picture. He is gesturing this way, so he too is directing your eyes back into the painting itself. The boat is placed here. It too is directing you into the painting. Now, this was something that I picked up from Maury Anderson. Again, I will use his name because he gave me so much information on clam and clam fishing. I thought they used hooks, and he showed me. He actually had these little braces. They're probably about 3 or 4 inches long, and they're round on the end. And what the fisherman would do is put these on long rods. He would find a clam bed, and when you find a clam bed, he explained to me that the clams were opened up like this. And when you drag those metal pieces across, they feel that and they close up and they won't open back up. It's so simple to harvest them, because it's just a matter of slowly dragging that across, and then he said they would lift it up and here'd be all these clams hanging on those little hooks. Reminds me of the monkey that put his hand into the cookie jar, and that's how they captured him, because he wouldn't let go of the cookies, and that was, if he just let go of the cookie, he'd get his hand back out, but he didn't. He kept hold of the cookie. Same idea with the clams. Unfortunately, because they were so easy to harvest, they really cleaned them out. When they would find a clam bed, there wasn't much left. And Maury told me that a clam this size could be 7 or 8 years old. He said, imagine how many years it has taken for us to replace that process back in the river. And that's what I said before. That's what I'm talking about with this mural. Not so much the process of making buttons, but the damage that we did and the beauty that we harvested because we needed a button. All right. So he's getting all his stuff ready. I didn't put any clams up there. What I did do is put the shells of the clams down below that have been harvested. Now you notice how big they are. The clams aren't that big. They're just close to you. And I purposely showed this one empty inside. Yes, they had to kill them. They had to take a tool and pry them open, break them open. There was very little use for the foot or for any of the innards that came out of the clams. And the other thing I can tell you is the stench. All of us know about fish flies that live along the river, know all about that. When we have a harvest of fish flies 2 or 3 times a year, they come up, they attract to the light, and they die. And the smell is unbelievable. Now, these people that worked in these button factories, that smell was all day, every day, on your hands, on your clothes. Unbelievable. Unbelievable stench. Had to be. And if you go to the library, our public library here in Bellevue, there are actually photographs. There's a photograph of the actual room where we have our gallery today. That was the button factory. That was where they had this. So all these shells I just showed you were thrown out alongside of the building, and Maury said he went out before they remodeled everything and took literally boxes of these shells before they are all now covered with asphalt and cement and rock. But there are still remnants of them along the river shore. He gave me 2 or 3 samples that I could use for this particular mural. The reflection down below, again, is instrumental in the composition of the painting. If you look at the reflection here, you will see that the paddle and the actual oar itself is forming an arrow pointing this direction. That's where I want you to look. And then the rest is pretty muddled out, but at least I didn't make it real clear. Didn't want it clear. Didn't need it clear. Just needed to reflect the images that are there and what was going on. But my strongest part, obviously, and the brightest part is this oar. Instrumental in keeping you within the composition of the mural. So let's read across now to the other side. This blank area in the middle is the river. How did I want to do that? I needed something in the mural as a neutral area so that it didn't become cluttered. So many things are going on in this that if I put more stuff in here, a riverboat, an eagle, whatever, it's going to be distractive, and it doesn't really add to what's going on or what I'm trying to say with the mural. Over on this other side, when you read across, you're seeing a dominant figure. Now understand this is not done yet. So I just got done redrawing this whole arm. I got it wrong. So I've got to touch out some areas. I actually had somebody come in today and put on a shirt. And just before Mark got here to record this, and he had to hold this as a model so I could see how the folds and the shadows are going to work. I can't fake that. I've got to be able, otherwise it looks like this. It looks like a turkey leg, and you've got to have a little bit more to go on. Anyway, this is an actual photograph of a local button maker. I don't know what nationality he is. I didn't make him a nationality. I liked his hat because I have the same kind of hat. He's got a very intent look. It's all business. And again, I'm telling you, this is a hard place to work. Look at the background. Look at how dingy it is and how dark. A little few lights illuminating the workers not one row, not two rows, but 3 rows of workers. And again, if you look through the documentary, there are many, many rows of workers. And there was all kinds of electrical cords hanging down that ran these machines. And I don't know how they worked, but they machined or drilled, cleaned out. Someone had to clean all these little clams out first. Secondly, they had to place them so that they could drill those holes into place. And then I showed the finished buttons down below. Nothing fantastic, just buttons. And I need to shadow those. Right now they're flat. He is rather flat. He needs shading. He needs darkness, just like you see now. You got a dark side, you got a light side. Well, that's what I have to do here. I pretty much got that caught back in here. And I tried to put some things in that were specific references. That pier going up, that pillar that's holding up that ceiling is all over in the button factory. That particular same, what do I want to say, support. So I didn't shade it. I left it open so that you could understand the strength, and it's pegged. There's no nails. They had everything. That's how that building stood for so long, because of its construction. And everything is run by wheels, conveyors. I have no idea what he's doing here, but I'm kind of faking that. He's pretty intent on what he's doing. And again, that's probably a little bit more the natural size of the clams that you're working with. And again, that's run by a conveyor. Look at how that conveyor points down towards the buttons. Look at how his gesture is again to the inside of the mural. The center part that I haven't spent any more than about an hour on is the part I want to spend most of my time on. I want to show the beauty and the mother of pearl light that reflects off the inside of these shells. And I guess if you want to say the damage, the beauty that we interfered with. And this is an exceptionally, I mean, I washed and scrubbed this so that I could see. Now I need to get the feel of that light. And then when I'm done, you can see I plugged some of these holes up. I painted over, I maybe can't see that down below, but after I'm done painting, then I pull these off and you see the water through the inside. And you know, that's really what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, the whole thing. Yeah, there's the process of the button maker and all the people that work with it. It did employ quite a few people, I think 40 or 50 people when it was at its height. And like I said, 35,000 pounds of dead clams built up in one day that they worked in. Now that was probably a banner day, but sure, these guys would get paid by how many clams they would bring in. And Maury told me, he said, as this process kept going, they weren't getting the big clams anymore. They were starting to pick up the juveniles and the smaller clams. Well, they got less buttons out of them, so they needed more clams. Oh my gosh, so they took more clams out. It's unbelievable. Now, when I was out fishing, I did see somebody harvest some clams. And what he did was get off the side of his boat. He was in about waist deep water, and I was watching him. I was about a half a mile away, and he would just bend down and feel along in the mud until he felt a clam, and then he would pick it up and put it into the boat. I asked him later why he was doing that, and he said, well, it was middle of the summer, and he thought it would be a good time to use that foot or that meat that's inside the clam as a bait for his commercial fishing. It's legal. You can do that. You know, there's a few protected clams. Maybe you can't do it anymore, but at the time, this is probably 8 or 10 years ago, I was just fascinated by what he was doing. Obviously, the fishing wasn't very busy because I had time to watch this going off on the side. But I got an appreciation about what, and he showed me the clams that he had, and he showed me how he opened them up, and he showed me the foot, which is just, what do I want to, it looks like a little sole of a shoe. That's about the best I can describe it. So that is kind of what this is all about. I keep referring back to that. My appreciation, again, for the river, my sensitivity to what we have. You know, they so often people have said, "Oh, you live by the Mississippi River. You probably don't even look at it." Well, we do, and a lot of us not only enjoy it in our boats, but enjoy the fish that we harvest from it. I'm also a waterfowl hunter, but I have deep appreciation for the beautiful sense of migration, which I was only able to see probably every 4 or 5 years, when I can sit back and I don't even shoot. The thousands of ducks. If I happen to be in the right place at the right time, it is marvelous to see. It lasts about 20 minutes, and you have to be out there. Even though I'm a hunter, I still appreciate, I'm still into conservation. I don't shoot over my limit. I eat what I shoot, what I harvest, and I'm doing less and more of taking pictures and sitting back than I am of actually being out there and making sure I get my limit. I don't. I no longer shoot wood ducks. I no longer shoot teal. There's certain waterfowl that I just don't. It's enough. I don't need to. I just like to be there. So I guess that all takes place. Where I was born was along the Truckee River, up along the Minnesota border, Upper Iowa River and Truckee River. And when I was old enough to ride my bike, my parents let me ride 2 miles outside of town, and I literally lived along that Truckee River. I could handle snakes, turtles, small little salamanders. I was just fascinated by them, and I wanted to get into biology, and I wanted to get into that as a career. But my math isn't so hot, and my minor was art, so hence I became an art teacher. And now I'm trying to prove that teachers, they say, if you teach something that you can't do. Well, I can do it. I'll tell you right now, and I love it. I've got a passion for this. I've passed that passion on to our board and on to our organization, and we're very, very pleased on the results we're getting from that. And I guess that's about all I can say about the mural. Again, working in a small town, Matthew Schmidt's my right hand as far as building is concerned in constructing this. He understands. He's done one of my other murals as well. And what he will do is build the whole facade where this mural is going to go. And it's just a matter of me making a phone call and said, "Matt, I'm done," and then I better get out of the way because his workers, I'm in a second-story studio, they come walking up here and they take one panel and take it on down, and by the time I hold the door for them and come back up, they're coming back up for the second panel. By the time I drive down to the location, it's installed. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That's small town. Yeah, I'm going to have to touch up where the bolts go, so that's what this attaches to. This material is 3/4 inch medium density plywood. The most expensive, I think, probably of any plywood you can buy. Running right around $130 a sheet. I don't care. This is going to be permanent. I don't want something falling apart. It's triple coated with primer. And then this is my test piece. This piece will be setting out in my home facing the same direction that the mural is. I look at this all the time. What colors are going to start fading? I want to be able to compare that. These paints are specially manufactured. It's the first time I've been able to use those kinds of paints for a mural. They are tested, the light. That's why I'm getting some pretty intense colors that on my first mural, everything was in sepia tone. More neutral colors so the sun wouldn't beat it up so bad. This, I could probably use pure colors and still be okay. So our first mural that we did with these paints is actually up at the Butterfly Garden. Sue Salvo, again one of our artists for the Arts Council, did a beautiful mural of butterflies, and she ordered these paints, and she said, Dave, these are fantastic to work with. You need to work with these. And it's a latex, but they've done so much research on latex anymore that it can take the UV rays. So I think that's about it. This will be installed in probably about 2 or 3 weeks, and we're all excited to get this done. All right, thank you very much.